NSFW, what is the most disrespectful thing someone did in your house? A girl I knew was keeping an eye on my cats and feeding the 2 fish while my girlfriend and I were on vacation. Before we left, we filled up the cat's large water bowl. It's the kind that has a reservoir, so we really only need to refill it about once a week, and we fully cleaned both of the fish tanks. When we got home, the cat's water bowl was completely dry and knocked over on the floor. Both fish tanks were filled with food. My better tank had a battery pack in it, and he later died. She came in the door with another girl. They had been at our apartment pool while we were standing there in disbelief. Still gets me fired up every once in a while. I was going to pay her, but absolutely not after that, lol. I'm house sitting for friends, and my anxiety tells me, what if you duck it up and they get mad? But then I read this shit and realize I'm fine, laughing my butt off. 6th grade, 1992. A friend of mine had to take a shit, and I guess there wasn't enough toilet paper left on the roll. He decided to wipe his ass on our bath towels and stuff it behind the sink. Never hung out with him again. My mom from then on would refer to him as shitty. Me and 2 of my brothers were hanging out drinking at my house when I was around 18. I went to bed and they stayed up. When I got up the next day, my one friend told me to throw away one of my drumsticks. Found out a few days later that they blew each other and one of them shoved the drumstick up his ass. They both had girlfriends at the time. My wife tended to a tomato plant, one single tomato plant, for weeks to get one bud. She cultivated it, pruned it, watered it, everything. Just as it was getting to be picked, we had movers there and one ate it. Actually, he ate half and threw away the second half. 20 years later, I'd still think that my wife will kill that man if she saw him today. This happened to my sister and I when we were little. My parents had a huge yard that was very well kept, along with a large fish pond. One day after school there was a knock on the door and my sister and I were home alone. Obviously we hid and peeked out the windows instead of answering the door. We watched 2 little only ladies wander into our strawberry patch that we had been taking care of and pick the one strawberry that had another day or so left until it would have been perfectly ripe. My little sister had been waiting so long for that strawberry she grew. We watched these women walk through the entire yard and spend about 20 minutes just sitting and chatting on our furniture overlooking the pond, like they owned the place. People are absolutely unbelievable. Yanked my blinds off the wall hard enough to break them and did not apologize. My mum has an issue with blinds. She does not seem to understand the concept that you need to pull the string down and not away from the window if you want to raise them. As a consequence, blinds in her house have a pretty limited lifespan, often less than a year, if it is one she opens frequently, since she is so rough with them. The blinds in my house were already a bit dodgy when I bought it, and I warned her that she needed to be gentle, but she insisted on violently pulling on the cord hard enough to bring them crashing down. If she had done it once and apologized, that would be fine, but she did it every time she came over. I pointed out to her that the blinds no longer opened since she had pulled them off the wall, and that pulling on the cord would literally just pull them off the wall, and her response was basically that I should repair them. I actually put off repairing them for several years, since I rarely cared about opening them anyway, in hopes of making the point to her that she should be gentle with blinds, especially when they are other people's property. But I do not think she ever got the message. I did eventually replace the blind, but got ones without a cord to make it harder for her to damage them. When I got my first apartment, my mom came over to see it. It was an old, kinda crappy place, as most first apartments are. The very first thing she does is try to pull the blinds open, but pulls away from the window instead of straight down. They were not held there by anything but gravity, so she rips it right off the bracket and breaks and bends the hell out of them on day 1. Side note, maybe replace them with curtains instead. Years ago, a kid in school used to host parties all the time as his parents were always away on weekends. It was great. Being 16, always having somewhere to go and get shit-faced until someone took a shit in his kettle, and we were never invited back. Apparently shit, when boiled, creates loads of nasty shitty foam that escapes the kettle, takes over the kitchen and leaves a stink for weeks. Friend of a friend of a friend stayed at my place and helped me build a fence over a few days. Then on the last night he took a bunch of acid and things took a weird turn. He cycled between threatening to attack me and trying to jerk off in front of me and my wife. Nice fence, but I would be hesitant to recommend them to a friend. Roommate's friend brought her dog over for the weekend while she stayed with us. She said it was her emotional support animal. Dog took a dump in my room and the friend refused to clean it up. Needless to say, I informed my roommate she was not welcome back. You let her stay after you had to clean up her dog's shit. I do not care what I promised. You do not clean up after your dog. You are out. Right after I clean it up myself. Well, I'm not doing that ever again. It was nice having you, but you need to leave now. On his first visit, a friend of a friend came to my house. He is around 150 kg. Sits down in my extra gaming chair and pulls the pin so it tilts backwards. Grabs each handle and starts bouncing, so it lifts off the carpet a few times. You could hear the chair nearing its limits. I ask him what he is doing. He looks at me and says, "Chill bro, I was just testing the springs." I told my friend not to take him over ever again. Some of you might think it was harsh, but I could feel he is like this with everything. I'm heavy, but quite a bit lighter than that. I always sit down on other people's chairs gingerly to test them to make sure I do not break them. I think you have made the right choice here. My friend had this issue and purposely put the chair together backwards. By that I mean the chair normally reclines when you sit well. If you are not gentle enough, it tilts forwards and shoots you out onto the floor. Great idea really. A friend was over with her husband and their 2 young children. They were here to meet my new baby. Their kids both were running and wrestling in the living room and they knocked my drink off of my end table all over and onto the magazines I had below it. I asked her if I could get her a towel and she says to me, they already know they are grounded when they get home. They do not clean up there either. I cleaned her own damn kid's mess in my own house. She was not kidding about them destroying their own house. Up high as they could reach was a band of crayon scribbles all along the rooms in every single room in that house. My friends brought their 5-year-old over for brunch. I did offered some cinnamon toast, but she wanted quiche. She jammed her face completely full of quiche, slid off her chair, crossed my dining room, went through my kitchen, around the sofa into the living room and spit chewed up quiche all over my tan couch. She did not like the taste. The reaction she got was sweetie, do you not like it? And then they ducking asked me to make her cinnamon toast. Obligatory, not me, but my best friend. Had another friend come over and hang out for a while. Guy goes to the bathroom and comes out a while later and said he needed to go home. About an hour later my buddy goes to that bathroom and finds the shower curtain covered in shit. He had apparently ran out of TP and decided the curtain was a good backup. That guy never answered any calls or texts and ghosted my buddy. Interesting fella. A friend and his girlfriend came over for a few drinks and to just hang out. She went into the bathroom almost as soon as she got there and stayed in there for over an hour. I only had one bathroom at the time, so this was a big inconvenience for bunch of drinking dudes. When she finally came out, we found that she had scavenged all the loose change laying around and had been smoking what we later found out was crack. When I told my friend what happened, he was super embarrassed and left with her immediately. We later found some of her crack wrapped in a foil gum wrapper and tossed it. My friend said she had forgot something and threw a fit when he wouldn't bring her back to get it. Not exactly in my house, but close. Had a large fig tree in the backyard of my house. Rented the house out to a bunch of college girls one year while my house sat for my girlfriend's place. Her dad was a college offensive coordinator and ended up leaving for a job with a different school, and they could not unload the house just yet. They eventually sold their house. We moved back into my house, which, amazingly enough, now did not have a fig tree in the backyard. Methodicas uprooted and stole the fig tree.